did the president have financial interests at stake when he was talking to Erdogan, Orban, Xi, and others? Maybe his kids had some economic interest at stake.
I'm offended and shocked that Schumer would be so scurrilous as to accuse the president and his children of making money illegally off of politics, when the only people we know who have actually made money off this have been Hunter Biden and Joe Biden.
Senator Rand Paul very forcefully objecting to Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer's unsubstantiated speculations about the Trump family. Now, one man who's spent much of his career investigating conflicts of interest within political families joins us now. Investigative journalist Peter Schweizer. He is author of the new book, Profiles in Corruption, Abuse of Power by America's Progressive Elite. Peter, good to see you. Congratulations on the book. Is there any comparison to be made between Biden and Trump on political conflicts of interest?
No, none whatsoever. Look, Trump came in with a lot of commercial ties, a lot of international operations, but he built those before he went into politics. The Bidens had nothing. They've now got a lot as a result of politics. And we know that Hunter Biden went to China on Air Force Two with his father, landed a big private equity deal there, $1.5 billion. We know he got the deal in Burisma just a couple of weeks after his father's appointed point person on Ukraine policy.
And it wasn't just Hunter. There were other members of the family as well, right?
Yeah, we call them the Biden Five. It's like the Jackson Five, but these are the Biden Five of corruption. And they all cashed in various ways. He's got a brother who, with no experience, became the vice president of a construction company. They landed a $1.5 billion contract to build 100,000 homes in Iraq. We've got a sister who cashed in on his campaign work. We got another brother who did work in Costa Rica and Jamaica that got taxpayer-backed loans for energy projects. He has no background in energy. I mean, the list goes on and on and on.
You know, you've done investigations on the Clintons, the Bidens, Sanders. You know what? If I ever run for office, I'm going to actually have you do my ops research, right? In fact, I might actually have you do one on me, so that way I say, you know what? I'm Peter Clean.
I'd be glad to.
No, but with that said, you know, it's really mind-boggling to know that, you know, Chuck Schumer is saying things like that, and we've heard other anecdotes from other Democrats. You know, my father always said, you know what, son, if you dig a grave, dig two. Why? Because the first one is going to be for you. Yeah. So never dig a grave for someone. Yeah. Are the Democrats digging a grave for themselves here?
I think they kind of are. I mean, they made Hunter Biden central to this impeachment by insisting there's nothing there. The problem is there's a lot there. So I think if we're going to have witnesses, you have to have Hunter Biden, because the entire case of the Democrats rests on their notion that there was no legitimacy to Trump's request. And I think it was a completely legitimate request. It could have been said slightly differently. It would have been better if he said work with the Attorney General, maybe not with my personal attorney. But those are all small, minor things. Right. The bottom line is this was legitimate.
Capri?
Well, look, I mean, I want to go back to this issue that, you know, Chuck Schumer is lobbing insults or assertions about the Trump kids. I mean, I think this is, you know, you shouldn't be making assertions if you don't have explicit, concrete facts. Whether it's Hunter Biden or anyone else, I mean, he's not the first, nor will he, unfortunately, be the last individual with people who have ties in government that are basically profiting off of it. But I mean, we also cannot totally ignore the fact that there are members of the Trump family that, while they do have pre-existing relationships in commercial industry, there has been reports about Ivanka Trump, for example, in China with patents and things of that nature. So just because you have pre-existing relationships does not mean that once you get into government, you shouldn't put up a firewall. And I think that is where the conversation needs to go on some of these issues. Hunter Biden stuff is wrong, but you know what? No matter what, you have to be consistent, and you need to make sure that if you are in government, whatever your pre-existing relationships were in business needs to make sure that those things are walled off. And I say that as someone who served in government for a decade and had to recuse myself from a whole host of issues because of business relationships.
Fair point.
Yeah, no, it's a fair point. I agree with you 100%, Capri. And I said that when Donald Trump came in, that he needs to take precaution. There needs to be a thick wall between the commercial and private interests. And I actually think they've done a pretty good job of that. I mean, one of the things they said, my big nightmare was they were going to start having Trump hotel projects everywhere around the world. politically connected. They said they weren't going to do any of them. They haven't done any of them. So I think that's good.
By the
I
way,
agree with you.
I want to move on to another politician, but I just got to ask, Joe Biden says he never talked with any family members about their business. Is that possible? Quickly.
It's not possible. I mean, we know, for example, that his son-in-law's business, they got a meeting in the Oval Office with Barack Obama. Joe Biden briefed their investors privately over the course of 5 years to help this new company. How do you do that and not talk business with your family?
Let's talk about an ironic character in business, and that ironic character is Bernie Sanders. He's a socialist. Socialists aren't supposed to accumulate great wealth, which he has through his family. You wrote a piece in the Fox News today, Fox News website, saying, quote, Bernie Sanders rails about common good, but public service has made him and his family rich. Elaborate.
Yeah, at every step of the way, from mayor of Burlington to when he ran for Congress and then his presidential campaign, money has ended up ways directly or indirectly to his family members. When he was mayor of Burlington, one of the first things he did was hire his then girlfriend, later wife, put her on the payroll. The city council, according to the local press, says, you can't do that. We didn't create this job. Bernie said, too bad, she's going to have it anyway. And that's been the pattern along the way. In addition to that, you know, Bernie's worth a couple of $1 million. If you look at his investment portfolio, not only is he in S&P 500 companies with his picks, he's not in socially conscious investment funds.
Oh, that's interesting.
I mean, he's going for straight Fortune 500 investment firms.
Peter, congratulations on the book. I mean, your Bernie call out here, I think, was completely spot on. I mean, my God, as you said, his wife's been on the payroll and essentially for decades now. Explain, if you would, really briefly. And essentially, his wife was named to the board of directors of a non-for-profit college because of his name. And what happened? The college went out of business just a few years later.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, you know, she got on the payroll when Bernie was mayor, and then when Bernie was running for Congress, they figured out this great way to make money in Washington, which is media buys. So, David, if you were to run for the Senate and I handled your media buying and you gave me $1 million for media buys, I get a 15% commission. $150,000 goes straight to me. So what does Bernie do? He puts his wife in charge of media buys. So